Stick or twist, jump or sit, scale or wait. Every business owner wants growth. Every entrepreneur wants to feel that they are expanding and taking up more space. Deciding whether to scale or not at this very moment is one of the most difficult questions an entrepreneur will be asked during their journey. It can have major implications on the environment within the company and the processes that the organization is used to. There are a myriad of questions that you have to ask and answer correctly if you are to walk down this road. The problem is a lot of companies scale too soon and incorrectly. To scale will mean to expand yourself, your business operations, your current customer base, as well as your revenue streams. Expansion puts pressure on your team and your bottom line, which is why so many budding startups end up dead. Your cash flow takes a serious hit as you start to invest in new product lines, customer acquisitions, facilities. That can make you or break you. And for the majority of fast-growing companies, it will absolutely be the latter. So what are the signs that you are ready to scale? How can you scale successfully? What pitfalls must you avoid? Let's answer all of that right now. For me, the biggest sign that you are scale ready is when you find yourself having to turn down new business. Success is the biggest determinant of future plans. Your customers right now are funding your growth, so it makes sense to look after them. On top of that, you have new customers banging on the door who have to be serviced but will bring in revenue. That's great. But what if suddenly your employees, your inventory, and your time is stressed thin between the current and the new clients? If you found that you have reached a point that there's greater demand than capacity, that you can't fulfill your current customers and work with new ones simultaneously, then it's absolutely time to expand your capacity. This means inevitably hiring more staff, opening more locations, adding greater bandwidth, anything of that nature. Another sign is when you are consistently beating your forecast and goals. You should be planning quarters and years in advance, whilst forecasting expected financials as well. If you have beaten your metrics, let's say in profit or positive cash flow, or customers acquired, several quarters in a row, then you clearly have a growth trend and should seriously consider scaling. But there have been companies who had all of this and have still gone bankrupt when they were scaling. So what went wrong? What are the dangers inherent to scaling? Well, the biggest inherent danger is cash flow risk. Again, that's cash flow, not profit. As a growing business, capital expenditure, investing in infrastructure, new inventory, new locations are going to be your biggest headache, if you are expanding, of course. The issue is this investment always has to front run the increased revenue. So if you've invested heavily and not enough money comes in, or comes too soon, you can find yourself in very, very big trouble. Let's imagine that as a clothing company, you invest 500 grand in increased stock, but no bulk orders come for months from any shop or whatever. And when they do come, they ask for 60 days supply of credit. So you're not even going to get paid for 2 months after they've come in. If you haven't factored that in, your cash flow could seriously put you in jeopardy. Another mistake scaling businesses make is losing focus. Another mistake that businesses are scaling is when they lose focus. In the world of business, this is called shiny object syndrome, where a company is growing and starts to take on business from everywhere, and I mean everywhere. The problem is that you lose your niche positioning here. It dilutes your brand and also puts way too much pressure on your cash flow once again. When you're trying to service everyone in the market, everyone that's knocking on your door, you're going to put yourself in big trouble once again. One more mistake that I see quite frequently is investing into a tidal market. What do I mean by a tidal market? Well, think of the tide. The tide goes in and the tide goes out again. And my point is some markets experience growth for a very specific external reason for a while, but they contract as soon as that external reason disappears. Don't be suckered in by this. Invest heavily into growing and then get caught out when the tide goes out again. How many businesses grew because of COVID but are now struggling now that COVID is starting to wind down? So I'm sure you can see the pitfalls of that that you have to avoid when you're scaling. But with that being said, here are my tips for growing entrepreneurs to keep them safe on their scaling journey. Firstly, cash flow is king. You need to have reliable baseline cash flow from which you can invest in capital expenditure whilst also having enough money to run your existing business if everything goes bad. Don't start scaling until you have several quarters of consistent cash flow, as well as a large supply of repeat customers. Secondly, do Do a deep market analysis. Ask yourself, is this a consistently growing market, or is there a very specific temporary reason that it's just boomed? Is there any chance of a deep contraction in the near future? Is the size of the projected market and the projected growth worth this amount of investment? Have a business roadmap from the beginning. You should know beforehand where you are on the map at a given moment in time. This roadmap allows you to keep focus when you're making it big. It stops you from wagging your tail at the wrong business opportunities that come to you. You'll stay calm in the face of temptation and stick to your target market instead of falling for shiny object syndrome. My last bit of advice is minimize risk entirely. Risk is inherent in business, but there's no need to bet on black. Scale only when you are ready and when you have planned to do so. Don't dance to the tune of your competitors or even the market or your customers. 2 quarters of growth don't signal scaling time. New customers throwing themselves at you, a new line of credit from the bank, all of this is irrelevant. None of these by themselves mean you have to start scaling. Move at your own speed, in your own time. I'm your Entrementor. This is my CEO Academy. Remember, the treasures you seek lie in the cave you fear to enter.